Hello there everyone. This video on the patch notes is a tad late, but because there was some, let's say, problems with the newest patch 1.6, that kind of forced us to take things a bit slower, test things out in terms of the game itself, how things were working. I decided it was better to get the full picture before reading out any patch notes and potentially giving out information that would potentially ruin people's save. So with that out of the way, let's get into what this patch has to offer. 1.6 rolled out a few days ago, 2 days ago basically from when this is getting released, and it added team switching. Team switching did have a little bit of a stir on Reddit because people were saying that there was a bug where cards would reset to their starting points. It was bad UI reading. Basically, the guy that reported that got it wrong. He admitted it, and basically no problem there. Team switching is available, works as planned. Basically, the way that it works is very simple. At the end of the season, you can try and pick a new team, but it'll depend on how well you did. Not every team will want you unless you, say, performed spectacularly. So you have options there. Team switching has been enabled. It is in the game, and it does work on all the saves. They've added some support here for NVIDIA and AMD GPUs. They've actually updated this. This one uses, say, AMDs. But yeah, we've had a bit of an update here to the patch notes since they first came out. A bit of update to the Aston Martin enhanced car models. They've added a blue marking to George Russell's Mercedes. They corrected Williams' halo at lower levels of detail. I'm curious if the blue marking for George Russell's Mercedes, I actually forgot to check this, is consistent on other, basically if someone else takes over his car as well. That would be interesting to have a look at. They've had some general stability improvements, fixed PC only crash related to DX12, fixed an issue where Epic Store players could not access lock screen scenarios after a network error. Basically some general fixes, which is good. In my opinion, I haven't actually had a single soft lock after the patch, but that is on PC. There's been a bunch of problems, particularly for console players, so take this with a grain of salt. PC seems to have gotten, better treatment, unfortunately, in terms of errors. There's some people who just can't run Q3. They're just straight up locked out of it. There is a lot of crashes. Steam Deck players can't start the games. So keep in mind that while a lot of stability fixes have been implemented, they seem to only be working properly on PC. So if you're having problems with console, if you're having problems with your Steam Deck, or really anything else, feel free to go to, again, the manager, F1 Manager Discord, the F1 Manager page here, and just report those problems. There's been some changes to the game balance in terms of season objectives for 3 teams. This was the only thing of this patch that will only work on new saves. The initial objective for Merc has been changed from 2nd to 3rd, and they're expected to be champions by 25 now instead of 24. For Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, they've been changed from 7th to 8th. This is going to make the game a little bit easier for players choosing these teams, which honestly isn't a bad change. You shouldn't get fired on your first season for not performing spectacularly. Team management fixed an issue that could prevent the user being able to continue hiring reserve route at the end of the season. This is something that a lot of people were having problems with. I'm very glad that they got that fixed during this patch. Fixed an issue with car part design and research project not generating the appropriate amount of expertise gained when the sliders were moved. Now this is the big one, because the way that they fixed this is actually by going back to the system that we had for 22. And the best way I can describe the system that was in place before this fix and the 22 system is that you will have a lot quicker progression with the new system that they put in 1.6 rather than the old system 1.5, particularly for design. When it came to design, in 1.5 at release, doesn't matter where you put the slider, you'd get balanced expertise across the board. And honestly, I felt like that was a really good solution to, rampaging, basically having the player have a huge advantage during development. It slowed down the game. It was actually a very good solution to that, because by keeping it balanced, you didn't have any massive expertise jumps. Now, the way that the old system works in 22, there's a lot of people that are saying that, oh, it's all sliders to the right. No, that got fixed in 22. What is actually the case is that if you take one slider, 2 sliders, 3 sliders, all the way to the right, and the rest of the sliders all the way to the left, you'll get a very high gain in whatever you put to the right, while getting a far less loss in whatever you put to the left than expected. And this also carries over through the expertise game. Let's say that if you run a chassis which has 3 sliders balanced, you get 2% in each of the 3 stats by running it, as I said, balanced. However, if you were to put 2 of the sliders to the left and one of the sliders to the right, you're basically doubling your expertise gain. With everything balanced, you gain about 6%, but by putting 2 sliders to the left and 1 slider to the right, your total expertise gain is going to be about closer to 12%, meaning that you have, with the same amount of time, just moving sliders around, doubled your expertise gain. And not only have you doubled your expertise gain, you've put that extra expertise gain into what is going to make your car even quicker. So if you take that into account, that you can now forcefully put expertise into a certain aspect, in particularly cornering, you can, much easier than at the release of this game, create a rocket ship again. Because as I said, you can focus expertise into, say, cornering ability, and you'll have a much higher gain than before, particularly within the ability you're trying to focus. What might have taken you 2, 3, 4 projects even, well, let's say 3 projects before, will now take you 1. And that is a bit of an issue there with this new system, and that is why we're saying it's broken. It's unbalanced. It's not broken, it's working as intended in terms of the sliders gaining expertise, but at the same time, it's not working in the sense of game balance. Now, of course, you don't need to take advantage of this, but with the way that each part now has things they're strong and weak at, you do want to make specialized parts. But if you want to kind of keep things still balanced in terms of progression and not become a rocket ship by season 1, you're basically now limited to making one specialized part for everything from season 1, meaning that the only thing you're going to be making is that first piece, and then you're basically going to be going into research or just making balanced parts from that point out, unless you're going to want to really, really dominate. I'll have a video out on that later tonight, probably a bit later than normal, which will kind of highlight how that works, so you can have a look at that. But yeah, that is the main concern with the design slider. Now, the research slider's math is actually a lot better, which means that even if you go one to the right, all to the left, it doesn't give you as much expertise, so it's not as bad, but it's still not great. Honestly, the expertise gains are a bit too much, and that results in a lot of people saying that, oh, you broke sliders, it's buggy. Frontier hasn't actually said anything, but it's also, to keep in mind, there's also a different problem with this. Because Frontier said they fixed sliders, and if this is a fix, that means that the way the design has worked up until this point has been a bug. It was not intended to work like this, and it took them a month to fix a vital part of the game. So no matter which is the correct here, that they've either overtuned, expertise gain for the sliders like they did in 22, if they didn't intend to change the design slider as well as the research slider, as if it came as, an unintended change by making the research slider works again, it's not a good look. No matter how you look at this slider issue right now, it's not a good look for Frontier at all. But yeah, sorry about getting hung up on this. We're going to continue on to the other things here. They fixed the issue with research complete emails. We're not showing the increase. They'll now show you the increase, which will make your planning of your next research a lot easier. Fixed an issue with the email about factory fires ending was sent before the factory was, reopened. Basically, you get the message that the problem was solved before it was, leading you to still have a locked factory for a couple of days after receiving this message, which of course mess up with people's manufacturing. But I think these two things fixed is actually pretty good. No big concerns there. Okay. The racing fixed an issue where drivers did not need to use 2 different tire compounds from mid-session save. I can confirm this one isn't fully fixed. I've still seen it happen. Doesn't mean that they have fixed haven't fixed instances of it happening though. So it's still a case, it can still happen, but they probably have fixed some sort of instances for that. Fixed an issue with drivers would not start pushing and public flying laps early enough to circuits with slow straight on automatic. Fixed tire while behaving qualifying so that drivers time some warm and standard flying laps. These are good fixes. They seem to actually work as intended. You can no longer run the 2 flying laps in a row to get huge gains on your second one. You really will not be seeing that much, if at all. So these are good fixes. Running 1 lap in qualifying now is viable. I'd still probably run 2 laps just because traffic, personally. Fixed an issue with some drivers missing their driver codes. Mick basically now no longer has cloaking technology. He's will be showing up in everyone else. Fixed an issue with need to refuel dilemma and practicing qualifying will not pause the game. Basically, if you're about to run out of fuel, the game will pause and tell you to please go into the pits before you, cross a red flag. Fixed an issue where Rain VFX was not present on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One consoles. Good fix. Fix the red soft lock if there was a red flag in practice or qualifying or the play team's car were exiting the pit lane. I've had that personally, but again, any fixing of soft locks crashing like that is nice. Fixing an issue with Oscar Piastri referred to as Alex in the team comps. I think we had that once. But again, it's just nice to see them fixing these smaller problems. Fixed an issue where the UI was not anchored to the left side of the screen when widescreen was enabled. Fixed a soft lock when scrolling through the planning list in data view. Fixed a red soft lock when enabling manual control quality. With the tutorial, fixed an issue where the data view list could appear blank during races. So, a lot of fixes here, honestly. It's not a bad patch, but again, when your second flagship, so to speak, is the design and research fix, it's not a good look. However, they do say that we'll have another under investigation post soon, outlining the community race topics and issues we're looking at over the next month, which would kind of suggest that we are going to be getting a patch at least next month, but potentially we might be stuck with 1.6 sliders for a month going forwards, which of course is going to be bad. It's going to limit how, in my case, I'm going to be playing my series. I think for AlphaTauri it will be okay. This is kind of off topic because we are kind of into research phase. We can just do research kind of balance there. But again, it does cause a bit of problems here because particularly people who want to have a bit more difficult game really enjoyed this year's game at all. It's not actually difficult once you understand it, that's the thing. And the key thing to this is that with Alfa Romeo you can even score race wins if you're lucky in season 1. So development wise, of course, I feel like you should at least take a season to take the worst team to be the best team. You can still do what you did in 22, where you take the worst team. By season 2 you're the best team. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about that. There's also a couple of issues here that have not been addressed, namely the static crashes and the unfair penalties. Basically, whoever caused a crash gets, whoever is crashed into gets penalized, things like that. Static cars getting hit by, cars running fairly slow, even pretty long after the incident happened, things like that. But general, the patch here isn't a bad thing. The only concern is that, again, I have concerns regarding Frontier's Q&A. Particularly seeing that it has introduced a lot of problems on console, it seems like it isn't actually tested for console at all. Probably isn't tested thoroughly for Steam Deck either. And particularly with the sliders here being, kind of broken as they are right now, this issue right here, you can see that Q&A doesn't actually do much for at the games. Basically what I think, if there's any Q&A, the only thing they're asked is, does the feature work? So in this case, they have been asked to check, do the sliders now have an effect on expertise gain? Do research sliders have an effect on expertise gain? And they just answer yes or no. There's no concerns to balance here. The only concern is, do the sliders work? And because everything was locked at balance gains, we thought that the Frontier has actually come up with a pretty good solution to the design. Basically splitting the sign sliders, making sure they're balanced no matter where we place our sliders in terms of seasonal gain, and then making research be a bit more, you can actually influence it with sliders, which you kind of need. It was actually a really good solution, I felt. It's not the greatest solution ever, let's be honest, but it's a good solution to slow the player down during the season, to make research kind of be, the way to leapfrog. You can still use CFD and wind tunnel time to do said leapfrogging, because again, CFD wind tunnel time in this game acts as an extra day of expertise gain. So you can still use that to, as I said, leapfrog apart, bring in a big upgrade up to 6 times a season. You generally want to use some of those for research though. And with that in mind, there isn't really a good... Again, I don't feel like this is a good change, but we'll see. Frontier said it's under investigation. We'll see what they have to say, probably within a few days. I'll be updating the potentially pinned comment if they do make any changes from this. But personally, I'm not too big a fan of this patch, mainly because of this issue here with the sliders. Honestly, the way that I would fix this, the slider issue, the balance issue, the way that people are, getting kind of upset, because let's face it, Frontier right now is trying to make a game that caters to everyone, and that is part of their problem. They need to pick a direction. Are we going to make a game for a more casual audience that plays, maybe an hour every few days? Or are we going to make a game that is more catering towards the people who spend 2-3 hours a day, potentially, playing this game, churning through career mode, or as I said, who are you actually targeting the game towards? Because the way that this works, particularly with something like F1 management, which, to be fair, is a um, pretty niche market to begin with. If you do not specialize, or rather make a decision in the direction for your product, you're just going to end up disappointing everyone. Which is kind of what we saw with 22, it's kind of what we might be seeing now going forward with 23. And that is a concern of mine as well, particularly also with the lack in Q&A. Particularly, you know, if the QA doesn't have any say in, say, balance, if the balance isn't checked after, you know, playing. Because you could take any of the F1 Manager content creators, give them this patch for, say, 48 hours even, and they'd be able to, because again, content creators are very curious about what is changing. They do actually get benefits from getting that information out quick, because video popularity. You could basically have them help you out for virtually free. Most of them would do it. We know that there's a lot of people who love the game, who that if you ask them to go for a Q&A for patches like this, where you don't really need to keep anything secret, they could test this and they could figure out these problems very, very simply. I'd also like pretty much that if they added a patch directory to Steam. I know Paradox does this for most of their games. You can basically go into your Steam properties and you can pick earlier patches if you felt like they were more balanced in case something breaks during the game. And if they're going to go forwards with patches like these that do make changes that are kind of, you know, not fully tested, I guess you could say, it probably would behoove that they have a bit of, you know, a better fix there. But yeah, this is my rant. I'll be posting a Reddit thread where I go through basically what I'd like to see fixed in the future. Thank you for listening to my rant. We have gone through the patch notes, my thoughts, my, you know, ideas, and I hope you still have enjoyed. As I said, I'll have the Williams save up sometime later tonight, probably a couple hours later than usual, around 8 PM my time. Usually release it around 6 because of an editing issue. One of the clips just refuses to edit, so I'm going to have to convert it and get everything working. But yeah, the project kind of crashed, and I need to potentially restart the editing process, which is going to suck. But I'll hope to fully get it out in time. We'll see. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.